Hello. So, a lot of people have been asking me about how I managed to become a triple citizen. I was born and raised in the United Kingdom and left the United Kingdom when I was was in my early 20s. And I decided, for one reason or another, to go to Australia. I went to get a backpacker's visa to go to Australia. I booked a one-way ticket in my early 20s and I ended up in Sydney, Australia. And I ended up working for various technology companies while I was living in Sydney. So I'm very proud of the fact that I have a British passport. However, I am looking forward to the black ones coming back, the proper United Kingdom passports, the pre-EU passports, the passports that are coming out soon thanks to Brexit. I'm a bit of a Brexiteer. One of the reasons why I left the UK, to be honest with you, is that I was getting more and more of an impression that this EU superstate was trying to take over the United Kingdom by the back door, and the UK was becoming a very small, insignificant star on some unelected government's flag. But anyway, less of that. I'll do a Brexit video some other time. Many Brits like me left because of this EU takeover, and many Brits like me are thinking about returning. Now it's not a problem anymore. So here's my Australian passport. I absolutely love Australia. When I went to Australia as a backpack, or on a backpacker's visa, I really didn't do much backpacking, but on a backpacker's visa, when I arrived in Sydney and then I travelled around Australia, I was just astounded by how beautiful Australia is as a country and how much opportunity there is in Australia. This was in the early to mid 90s when I went to Australia, and there was huge opportunity then. It was a very good time to leave the UK and go to Australia too. The currency exchange was amazing. It was something like $3 Australian dollars to £1. So it was really a good time to emigrate if you had the opportunity. After about 10 years in Australia, I was working for a technology company and they wanted to relocate me to their global headquarters. And their global headquarters is in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale and the South Florida area. And they sponsored us to move. I'd met my wife by then and had a couple of kids, and my wife's Australian. And I managed to get Australian citizenship, not by marriage. I went through a process I'll tell you about in a minute to get my Australian citizenship. And then we all moved to America. And then sometime after us moving to America, and we moved on a very important visa that you should know about. And it's very important you choose the right visa when you move to America. After a while, we got our green cards. And then after we had our green cards for a while, we all became US citizens. And that's how I have managed to have 3 active passports, which is quite unique. I've never met anyone else with more than 3. I've met a few others with 3. And I think the best 3 to get, and everybody has an opinion on this because everybody feels differently about other countries and things like that. But I think personally, obviously growing up in the UK and being relatively westernized and speaking English, I think the best 3 to have for me are these 3, and certainly they offer the best combination, in my opinion, of lifestyle and work opportunities and career opportunities and things like that. So I got a few websites up here, and I thought I might show you some things going on. First of all, if you're thinking about moving to Australia and you're under 25, the easiest way to get over there quickly is to try and get this backpackers visa, which I still believe is an avenue for younger people to go over there. I got my backpackers visa converted to a temporary resident visa, and I think it was something like 4 or 5 years. It was called a 457 visa, which unfortunately has been scrapped by the Turnbull government about 3 years ago. And there's a new visa in place to replace that, which is much more stringent on things like criminal record, background checks, and prior work experience. the 457 visa was focused on skilled people coming in. And as a matter of fact, I'm a very big proponent of the fact that immigration should always benefit the people already living in that country that you're trying to immigrate to. And so you need to be bringing in skills. Now, when I was going to Australia, I was bringing in the technology skills. I was a qualified computer engineer in various areas, and so I brought those skills to Australia, and they were very valuable to Australia in that period of time because of Y2K. As you'll probably remember, that was a big deal in the 90s, making sure that Australia was ready for Y2K. Time zone wise, Australia was one of the first countries to go through the new year. Every new year, it's further ahead in time zone than most countries around the world, and Sydney is one of the biggest cities that are further ahead in time zone. So and so I was working on many Y2K projects and many different technology companies, and Australia was really wanting those skills. So I came over there on a backpacker's visa. I got that quickly converted to a 457 skilled migration visa, and then after that I got permanent residency in Australia, which is their equivalent to a green card. And then after that I became an Australian citizen at a ceremony in Brisbane, Queensland, which is where I was living at the time. About 10 years after moving to Australia, the technology company I was working for wanted to relocate me, and I'd had 2 kids by then, young kids at the time. We moved to Fort Lauderdale, and one of the things, again, to be very conscious of if you're moving to the United States is to be very careful about what visa you go and move on. Make sure absolutely that you're moving on a visa that is convertible to a green card. If you don't and you want to stay, it is a nightmare. It's a nightmare anyway. Even if you do everything right, the U.S. immigration system is pretty complex actually, and we got an immigration lawyer involved to help us out. But you have to do a civics test. The process of getting a green card is pretty challenging actually. And it has to be renewed at various points as well. So we very quickly tried to get from a green card to citizenship, so that we didn't have to go through all that process of having to renew green cards over and over again. So this is the visa that I came to America on, and this brought a work visa also for my wife. It also brought basically not permanent residence, but right of residence to the children too. So this really covered us really well. This is where they're taking a remote employee from a branch office, and they're bringing that employee to their headquarters, and they're bringing that employee into a management position, which actually was the case for me. And so this L1A visa, and there's an L1B as well. The L1B is not the one to get. It's not convertible to a green card, or certainly wasn't when I was doing the research originally. This L1A absolutely is, because I did get it converted to a green card, and after that I became a US citizenship in about 2011 sort of time frame. We made the decision to go back to Australia after we became US citizens, because the schooling system in South Florida for kids that are getting older is not very good. It's notoriously bad. You've got private if you really want a decent education for your children down in South Florida. Don't get me wrong, absolutely loved living in South Florida, and it's the best place in America for young families. If you have young kids, ultimately Florida's designed for tourism. There is so much to do as a family in Florida. We had the Caribbean on our doorstep, would go on cruises all the time. Disney's up there about 2 or 3 hours away from Fort Lauderdale. Cape Canaveral, the west coast of Florida, beautiful. So I just absolutely adore Florida, and would really like to move back there one day. I love the weather down there too. It's very much like North Queensland where we were living in Australia. But we made the decision to go back to Australia for a couple of years. Because we wanted our kids to experience a bit of the Anglo-Australian culture, which they have there, and then we returned to America, and here's a great example. We went to Australia already citizens, so easy. We came back to America after that, already citizens, easy. All right, so this now gives us huge flexibility. When our kids are off to college, I'm talking to the wife about maybe moving to the UK. I've been out of the UK now for over 20 years, and I am quite homesick. So wouldn't mind going back to the UK just to experience it. I didn't appreciate all those great things about the UK when I was leaving. Things like history and culture and things like that. Which I much more appreciate now. So there we are. So I have 3 active passports. Now, I'm not an immigration attorney at all. I've been through, emigrating numerous times and going through the whole citizenship getting process. So if you have any questions that you think I might know the answer to, then please put your comments below. Or any comments on things I've said, advice to other listeners, things like that. I'm very proud of the fact that I have 3 active passports, and I'm definitely pleased that I went through the process of getting citizenship in the various countries I have it when I went to get it. My advice to anyone is go through the process, even if you think you may not need it or you think you may not want to stay. Go through the process anyway. It's not actually very expensive and well worth it if you find out that you really do need to stay in that country, or you really did want to have citizenship because you wanted the right to come back after a period of time. There's nothing more of a nightmare than having to deal with temporary visas, or trying to get citizenship or permanent residency in a country as you get older. Countries generally feel that the older you are, the more of a potential burden you are on the infrastructure and services and things like that. And so get citizenship, permanent residency as soon as you possibly can, wherever you happen to be. Thank you very much, and look forward to your comments.